Me and Ted today wanted to demonstrate to everyone how to do our pre-trip, the Park Express pre-trip, properly, step by step from top of the page to the bottom. We've been having a few of them that aren't being filled out correctly, and we want to address this and a few other things for this meeting. So as you see at the top of my list here, everybody needs to fill in their first and last name, the date, the unit number, the time, the miles, the engine hours, and also how much fuel is in the vehicle. Next, we will go around the shuttle and inspect for any damages on it and mark it on this sheet. The hood, everything with the hood, the bumpers seem good. There is a little scratch here on 129. That needs to be noted, as we will note that as paint chips. The bumper seems to be in okay condition. You will notice on 129 that our gate opener or AVI does stick out past the bumper on this one. We'll go around to the driver's side of the vehicle. You need to check your mirrors, make sure they're not cracked, they're not loose or shaking. Check your caps up here at the top, make sure there's no decals coming off, paint's are chipped. You need to check your running boards, make sure they're nice and tight, they're not loose so you don't step and fall. Check down the sides of your panels, make sure your windows don't have any scratches, cracks. Check your molding. This molding does come loose from time to time on some of our vehicles. We'll come around to the back. The back of 129, as you can see, does have the decals are coming off the paint. We'll go ahead and mark that. Check the windows and things of that nature back here as well. We'll come around to the passenger side of the vehicle now. Again, on this side you need to check your drip rails, make sure they're not bent or damaged. Your windows, make sure they're not cracked, no scratches in them. Check your battery cover door, make sure it's latched and not coming off. You also need to have your doors open for your passenger doors. Make sure they're not too loose. This is proper adjustment as they do flex. Make sure they're not bent, warped. Your pieces down at the bottom are okay. Also, you need to check your steps. Make sure they're not rusted. Make sure your screws aren't coming backed out. That is a trip hazard. If you do see anything, note it. Let me and Ted know. We will take care of it as soon as we can. Check your passenger side mirror. Make sure it's not loose, cracked, or coming apart. The next item on our list here is the fluids of the vehicle. And we're today going to demonstrate the proper way of checking the engine oil in these. First thing first, do not start the engine as soon as you go to do your pre-trip. What we want you to do is not start the engine, but check the fluids before starting it. You get a better, more accurate level of where the fluids are at and where they need to be. First thing on the list is checking the engine oil. You need to pull the dipstick all the way out, wipe it completely clean, push it back in. This is how you check for true, accurate oil level. If you can see, the oil level is on this very top mark. That is a full level. Next fluid we will check the coolant. The coolant in the new CNG buses there is a cold fill and a hot fill line. This is at proper level. You don't have to take any caps off. Just make sure it is at this. This is proper level. Next thing, we will check the power steering fluid. This needs to be removed, wiped off, and on here there is a full mark cold and a full mark hot. If the engine's hot, been running, somebody else has been in it, that should indicate full and hot. If nobody's been in it and the engine is cold, the full level will be down here at the very bottom, right here in the middle. Right now the level on this is right above cold. This bus was run earlier today. This is proper, given the temperature that it is right now. Next fluid we will check is the brake fluid. You don't have to take the cap off. There is a mark on the very side. It will say max full level. The level of this brake fluid is at fully max, which is proper level. Check your washer fluid. There's plenty in this bus. Here's the max level right here. Okay. The fluid is up to that level. We will note on our pre-trip sheet that the oil is full, the coolant is full, the windshield washer is full, the power steering is full, and the brake level is full. For the next thing, we will check the transmission fluid. For this, you will need to start the vehicle. You already ensured that all the other fluids are full and at the correct level, so now we will start the engine and show you how to check transmission fluid. You need to get in, you need to set the parking brake of the vehicle, start the vehicle up, place the vehicle in neutral, remove the transmission dipstick fully, wipe it completely clean, reinsert the dipstick, until it's fully seated, remove it one more time, and check for the fluid level. Transmission fluid is very clean on this one. It is at this level here, which indicates that it is full when hot. Since this engine is hot, it is in the hot area, which meaning it is full. There is a cold area in case the engine has not been running. That's where it should be at if nobody's been in it before you. All our buses, you will see this cap for the transmission dipstick. This cap does snap back over. That ensures that this dipstick stays in there and does not allow dirt to go down this tube. Getting dirt down this tube will destroy an engine or transmission faster than anything else. So if we could make sure you're latching this latch, it ensures it keeps the dirt out of the transmission. We checked off that our transmission is full. On our checklist, it does say battery water. All our batteries are maintenance-free batteries. You do not have to check the water. You can just simply put a check mark beside it. Next thing you'll see on our checklist is start the engine. So our engine's already started. We checked the transmission fluid, so we're okay to go. Next thing is check service brakes. Due to our wheel simulators, you really can't see our brake pads. Me and Ted do check that every PM, which is 7 to 10 days on one of these vehicles. But the best thing to do to check your brakes will be to get in, pump the brakes a few times, and make sure the brake pedal does not go to the floor. This will ensure you don't have any brake fluid leaks and your brakes are operating properly. Next is check steering wheel excessive play. In order to do this, you just simply rock the steering wheel back and forth and make sure it doesn't feel loose. If it doesn't feel loose, there should be no more than 2 inches before the wheel starts to turn. We have less than 1/4 inch. This is a very tight steering. Next thing, you'll need to check all gauges. When we say check all gauges, we mean make sure that your oil pressure is up. This is the oil pressure gauge. Make sure your coolant temperature doesn't exceed 110 degrees. Next over here is your battery voltage gauge. Your battery voltage gauge should always read around 13.5 to 14.2 volts. It ensures that the batteries are good and your alternator is up. Down here we have your fuel gauge. Obviously we are getting low on fuel at this bus. I will scroll through the driver information center to let everybody know how everything operates with it. This is your mileage, your trip-ometer. You have 2 of them. This is how much fuel how many miles you can go on the fuel that is in the vehicle. Average fuel economy, gallons of fuel used. It doesn't apply to this situation with the CNG buses. A timer. I know a lot of you guys do use the timer. Average speed, tachometer, and then it blinks and you can turn it back to the mileage. This here, it checks your engine hours. You see the engine hours on here. You could also, me and Ted use this to reset the oil change life on these vehicles. The diesels, they do have a fuel filter life that we do reset. You'll also notice as we go through this, I am checking each one off. Next item will be the horn. Press the horn, make sure the horn works. Windshield wipers. The wiper switch is located over here on the driver's side, left-hand side of the vehicle. This ensures that your wipers work and your washers work. Next will be front AC and rear AC. Here you have your controls for your fan, your temperature, and what position to set the AC in. For now we'll put it in regular AC mode, turn the temperature over to cool, and turn the fan on max. And check for cool air coming out. We'll turn it back off. Next we will check the rear AC. The controls for the rear AC are here. This here is for your fan speed. This is for your temperature control. You turn your temperature all the way over to cool and turn your fans on. And you should be able to feel the cool air coming up on your back. If it is cool, you're good to go. Next item we will check is the heat. Set it over to just the vent. Turn your temperature over to hot. And you should feel warm air coming out. Next item is the rear heat. The switch for the rear heat is here. It has 2 speeds. It has a high and it has a low. And then it has a middle switch. The position in the middle is off. Next we will check all the emergency openings to make sure they all work properly. The very back window on all our buses is an emergency opening window. You pull the latches, it opens. We'll demonstrate this now. It simply doesn't stay open on its own. You pull it back closed and put the latches in. We also, on the driver's side rear window, is also an emergency exit window.
This is something that we do on the PMs, and you do not need to worry about opening and closing these windows. You just need to know how to do it.
Also, you'll notice above each emergency exit there is a light for the emergency exits. If one of these is to go out, please notify us. They do have to be working per DOT. Next on our checklist will be the doors. We will check the operation of the doors to make sure they open and close properly. Including the driver door. Next, we need to check all seats and seat belts. We will go back inside the vehicle to demonstrate this. You need to come in and start with the very front. Check them, shake them. Make sure your seat belts aren't loose in any of them. Your seats, you should shake all your seats. Make sure they're not coming loose. They all have to be tightened. Make sure the seat belts are here and not broken. You also need to check your seat. Make sure the seat goes up and back. Occasionally check the adjustment on it. Make sure it goes forward, and it goes back, and latches. This side of the bus, you have your seat back adjuster. You have your seat belt. Your seat belts are adjustable. You move them up and down. Check the latch. Make sure the latch is working. Next, we will check our fire extinguishers. Check the fire extinguisher. Make sure the latches are fully, they're not open. Don't need one of these rolling around the bus. We check the tags and the dates on them, so you don't have to worry about this. You need to check your first aid kit here. Make sure it's tight, not coming off. Me and Ted do check these for supplies when they're in here for PMs. You don't have to check that. Also check to make sure underneath your trash can is your triangle kits. Make sure the boxes are not damaged.
Also make sure your trash can is attached to the back of behind the seat so it doesn't roll around.
Next order of business, we'll check all our interior lights. All these lights must be working properly. Each row has its own switch that turns on and off. The driver's side, the driver does have its own dome light. It can be turned on and off with a switch or by opening the doors. Two-way radio. You do need to power up your radio. Radio powers up. It's operating the way it should.
27 in customer service.
Next, we need to check to make sure you have all your documentation inside of your shuttle box. Here we have our insurance card. You need to make sure you have a up-to-date insurance card. Annual DOT inspection that is current. It's current until 12/24 of 2013. That's when it expires. Registration. You need to make sure you have your vehicle registration and it's up to date. You also need to check on, make sure you have your access cards for CNG, your access card to Super Park, and also your fuel card. On the diesels, just make sure your fuel man card is in there. Make sure you have the shuttle sign-off sheet and the last driver's pre-trip inspection.
There should also be some customer complaint
Forms.
inside there.
And we do have those.
And frequent parking registration.
Now you can check off on this. Next we'll go to all exterior lights. Make sure your headlights work. This is low beam. This is your parking lights. Make sure everyone works. You have 5 parking lights up top. You have a Park Express vanity light. You need to make sure that is working properly. Make sure your sign marker in the middle is lit up. You have a marker light very back on the bottom. Make sure your license plate light works. They're hard to see. They are LED unless it's nighttime and it's hard to see if they work. Your tail lights, your marker lights across the top of the vehicle. Make sure they're all in operating condition. Also, you need to make sure your door lights work. This is the service light for the door when it's open so passengers can see. Make sure your step lights are working properly. They're both on. Now we'll check the operation of the turn signal. We'll turn the lights off. Engage the flashers. We will walk around the vehicle and make sure all 4 corners of the flashers are working. Our side marker light on all the newer vehicles, they do have a flasher built into them, and as well as a marker light. The flashers are operating. Get in and do the reverse light. Now we'll demonstrate that you do need to check out your brake lights and your reverse lights. Your reverse lights are now lit up, means they're operating correctly. Backup lights. There's also a third brake light up here at the top. That is your third brake light. It needs to be operational as well. Make sure your backup alarm is working properly. Next on our list, we do need to check for all exterior decals, tires, wheels, and lugs, fuel tank and cap, and the bumpers. Check all our bumpers. Make sure there's no damage to the front or the rear. As you're walking around, you also need to check your tire. Make sure your tread is not wearing. They don't seem to be low. And this is the tread depth on a brand new tire. For the CNG buses, they do have a cap. The cap does need to be put back on. Make sure the rear bumper is not damaged. This tire here is a tire that the tread is worn uneven. It's worn from the outside in, leaving no tread on the inside and more tread on the outside. If you start seeing a pattern like this, please let us know. You also need to check the tightness of your hubcaps as well. If they're coming loose, we also need to be notified of this. Now I'm going to demonstrate what we should do when we shut down a vehicle. When we turn the vehicle off, we need to make sure all lights are off. Key is out. When you're shutting down to go home for the day, you need to make sure your air conditioning for the front AC and heat is in the off position. The fan is in the #1 first position. You need to turn all your interior lights off. Make sure your rear heater is in the off position, the middle position, and also power down your radios. You need to hold the power button until it says powering down and it'll turn itself off. Turn the vehicle key off and you're now finished.